What if 10 US states joined Canada? Imagine 10 US states, yes, 10, ditching the stars and stripes for maple leaves, free healthcare, and hockey night in Canada. Over 60 million Americans swapping Uncle Sam for Canada's chill vibes and Tim Hortons runs. Crazy? Not quite. Some share hundreds of miles of border, billions in trade, and values closer to Ottawa than DC. Could it happen? Which state has 721 miles of Canada next door? Which one's got a GDP bigger than the entire country it's eyeing? Buckle up, this wild ride north is packed with jaw-dropping facts, bold what-ifs, and a few curveballs. Stick around and let's dream big. Number 10. Hawaii. Picture this. You're sipping a Mai Tai on Waikiki Beach, and someone's debating poutine toppings in Canadian French while wearing a lei made of maple leaves. Hawaii joining Canada sounds like a tropical fever dream. It's 4,400 miles from Ottawa, across an ocean, but hear me out. In 2019, nearly 500,000 Canadians flooded Hawaii, making up over 8% of its 10.4 million annual tourists. They stayed an average of 12 days, dropping $1,800 each, way more than the $1,200 average American spend. That's over $900 million injected into Hawaii's $100 billion GDP, where tourism accounts for 21%. Politically, Hawaii's a Canadian soulmate, 63.7% voted blue in 2020, with 72% favoring universal healthcare in state polls, plus strong support for climate action, think carbon taxes, and gun control, pure Ottawa vibes. British Columbia, with its $22 billion tourism haul and coastal charm, would nod in approval. Culturally, Hawaii's laid-back aloha spirit mirrors Canada's polite chill, and its 1.4 million residents could blend into Canada's 40 million without a ripple. Sure, Canada might squint and say, aloha, but how do we ship doctors across the Pacific? And what about pineapple on poutine? Logistics aside, with snowbirds already claiming it as their winter escape, Hawaii under a maple leaf isn't that wild. Hawaii in Canada? Paradise or pipe dream? Guess how many Canadians visit yearly and drop your take below. Number 9. Michigan. Michigan and Canada are so tight, Detroit and Windsor firefighters once teamed up to douse a blaze across the Detroit River, just a 10-minute drive over the Ambassador Bridge or through the tunnel. Sharing 721 miles of border with Ontario, second only to Alaska, they're practically one big Great Lakes family. Canada's Michigan's top export market, snagging $18.5 billion of its $59 billion total in 2023, a hefty 31%. That's autos, machinery, and steel, with 10,000 trucks rumbling daily over the Ambassador Bridge, one of North America's busiest crossings, handling 27% of US-Canada trade. Over 9 million people cross yearly, too. Culturally, Michigan's Canada's Rust Belt twin, hockey reigns with 200 amateur teams in Metro Detroit and 400 statewide, while the Upper Peninsula's 900,000 residents share Ontario's accent, slang, and love for snowmobiling, over 3,000 miles of trails. Politically, it's a swing state, but cities like Ann Arbor and Detroit lean hard progressive, 63% backed healthcare expansion in 2022 polls. Canada might groan. Traffic jams, car factories, and that Yooper accent? Hard pass. Yet 95% of Michiganders live within 85 miles of Canada, closer than to Chicago. Poutine meets Motor City Grit? That's a maple merger worth betting on. Detroit plus Windsor as one city, genius or gridlock? Guess the bridge's daily truck count and tell me below. Number 8. New Hampshire. New Hampshire's got a French-Canadian crush so strong, you'd swear it's Quebec's lost cousin. Nearly 24% of its 1.4 million residents, about 330,000 people, claim Franco-Canadian ancestry, with names like Gagny, Pelletier, and Laborie dotting mailboxes. In Berlin, pronounced Berlin, French songs rock the streets, and towns like Colebrook host Quebec-style winter carnivals. Sharing just 58 miles of border with Quebec, it's a short hop to Montreal, closer than to Boston for some. Canada's its top trade partner, with $1.2 billion in exports like machinery and timber flowing north in 2023, boosting its $90 billion GDP. Politically quirky, 64% favor healthcare reform, yet it's the only New England state without a sales tax. It's got a nature obsession Nova Scotia would salute. 30 state parks, 4,000-foot peaks, and a crime rate of just 1.5 per 10,000. Nearly 400,000 Canadians swarm yearly for foliage, skiing, and tax-free shopping, spending $200 million. Canada might smirk, live free or die. More like live free, pay taxes, and ditch the guns. Still, with sister city ties to Quebec towns and a quality of life ranking topping U.S. charts in 2022, these peaks whisper, bonjour, louder than Yankee. New Hampshire, secretly Canadian? Guess its top Canadian export and drop it below. Number 7, Minnesota. Minnesota joining Canada? They're twins separated at birth, no one blink. Sharing 547 miles with Manitoba and Ontario, it's got 11,842 lakes, more per capita than Canada's Land of Lakes, hockey worship, over 100 indoor rinks and 15,000 registered youth players, and, sorry, on repeat. Canada grabs $6.7 billion of its $27 billion exports, 25%, like machinery and crops, flowing through border towns like International Falls. Minneapolis, 430,000, mirrors Winnipeg, 750,000, in size, vibe, and 90-inch snowfalls, while the metro area's 3.7 million match Ontario's urban sprawl. Politically, Minnesota's deep blue, voting Democrat since '72, longest streak in the U.S., with 68% backing universal healthcare in 2024 polls. It ranks top 5 nationally for literacy and public schools, rivaling British Columbia stats. Culturally, its wild rice, walleye, and maple syrup sound familiar? Canada might yawn, another polite lake lover with 90 inches of snow? Sure, come in, but bring your own hot dish. Still, with 500 miles of shared canoe routes and a beaver population topping 100,000, Minnesota's already waving a maple flag. Minnesota, Canadian at heart or just borrowing the vibe? Guess its lake count and tell me below. Number 6, Vermont. Step into Derby Line's Haskell Library, enter in Vermont, exit in Quebec. This 625,000-person state shares a 90-mile border with Quebec and oozes mini-Quebec vibes. It churns out 2.2 million gallons of maple syrup yearly, half the U.S. total, second only to Quebec globally, sweetening its $36 billion GDP. Bernie Sanders' healthcare crusade, 80% local support, and legalized weed scream Canadian PM material, while 78% renewable energy, mostly hydro, mirrors Quebec's grid. Over 300,000 Canadians visit yearly, drawn by ski slopes and Ben and Amp, Jerry's, spending $150 million. Politically, it's the bluest New England state, 65% voted blue in 2020, and its 4,000 farms echo Canada's rural roots. Canada might blink. Wait, you're greener and cozier than us? With flannel, farmers markets, and a crime rate of 1.6 per 10,000, Vermont could slip into Canada quieter than a snowflake. Maple soulmates or just syrup buddies? Guess its syrup output and drop it below. Number 5, Maine. Maine's so Canadian, some towns celebrate Canada Day louder than the 4th. Sharing 611 miles with Quebec and New Brunswick, third longest U.S.-Canada border, 25% of its 1.3 million folks, 325,000, claim French roots. In Madawaska, French outtalks English, and schools teach bilingually. Over 1.2 million Canadians cross yearly, dropping $300 million on lobster rolls, camping, and Acadia National Park's 3.5 million visitors. Canada's Maine's top export market, taking $1.5 billion in seafood and paper from its $70 billion GDP. Politically, 60% back healthcare expansion, and 80% of its 17.6 million forested acres are sustainably managed, Atlantic Canada's twin. Mainers love Nova Scotia's beaches, 2, with 50,000 visiting yearly. Canada might sigh, more trees and lobster? We're good. Still, with a moose population of 70,000 and accents saying, see not car, Maine's maple ready. More French than American? Guess its French population percentage and tell me below. Number 4, California. Hollywood waving a maple flag? California's 39 million people and $3.9 trillion GDP dwarf Canada's 40 million and $2.2 trillion. It's not joining, it's upgrading the team. Over 1.4 million Canadians visit yearly, and 400,000 snowbirds roost in Palm Springs, jokingly dubbed Canada's southernmost city. Politically, it's Canada's progressive twin, 63% voted blue in 2020, with 70% favoring healthcare reform, electric cars, 1.5 million on roads, and carbon caps, tougher than Canada's. Its tech, Silicon Valley, and film, Hollywood, power a GDP topping the UK's, while 300,000 Canadian expats call it home. Canada might sweat, wait you'd outshine us, Toronto's not ready for LA's spotlight. Culturally, it's beaches and tacos meeting Canada's snow and politeness. 1.2 million acres of redwoods nod to BC's forests. Tired of DC, Californians might trade chaos for healthcare. Could Canada handle the star power? Guess its GDP rank worldwide and drop it below. Number 3, Oregon. Oregon and Canada? Hipster twins in flannel and forest. Just 31 miles from British Columbia via Washington, its 4.2 million folks vibe like Vancouverites. Portland's 279 parks and vegan scene, most per capita in North America, outshine even Canada's green cities, while 70% renewable energy, hydro and wind, matches BC's grid. Canada's its top export market, taking $2.8 billion in tech and timber from its $300 billion GDP. Politically, 56.5% voted blue in 2020, with 65% backing healthcare and climate laws. Oregon banned plastic bags in 2019, beating Canada by a year. Over 500,000 Canadians visit yearly, lured by tax-free kombucha and Crater Lake. The state animal? The beaver, Canada's nickel buddy. Canada might shrug. Another eco-nerd? Fine, but Portland's craft beer better share. Beaver buddies? Number 2, Washington. Washington and British Columbia? Siblings split by 427 miles of border. Seattle's 140 miles from Vancouver, plans for a 1-hour high-speed train nearly made them roommates. Canada's its number 2 trade partner, grabbing $8.7 billion in tech, timber, and Boeing jets from its $800 billion GDP in 2023. Over 2.2 million Canadians cross yearly, hitting Seahawks games and Skagit Valley's tulip fields, 75% of U.S. supply. Politically, 58% voted blue in 2020, with 70% favoring climate action. Washington's 100% clean energy goal by 2045 outpaces Canada's. Cannabis synced in 2018, and 75,000 Canadians commute or study here yearly. Canada might blink. Seattle's coffee and tech? BC's not ready to be the little sibling. Still, with 1,500 miles of shared coastline vibes, Washington's at Canada's table already. Seattle outcools Vancouver? Guess its Canadian visitor count and settle it below. Number 1, Alaska. Alaska's not joining Canada, it's coming home. Sharing 1,538 miles with Yukon and British Columbia, longest US-Canada border, it's got 730,000 people, 3 million lakes, and 17 of North America's 20 tallest peaks. Canada's its number 3 export partner, taking $1.2 billion in oil, seafood, and zinc from its $60 billion GDP in 2023. Indigenous Tlingit and Athabascans span the border, trading fish and stories for centuries. In Hyder, locals use Canadian dollars, and 175,000 moose outnumber bears 2-1. Canada's 1 million moose nod approvingly. Politically, it's red, but 60% support rural healthcare and conservation, Canada's turf. Before 1867, it was Russian, nearly Canada's neighbor. History's teasing a reunion. Canada might grumble. More snow and pipeline debates? Great. Yet with 3 border crossings and a shared northern soul, Alaska's maple destiny calls. Alaska's homecoming, yes or no? Guess its moose count and shout it below. From Hawaii's beaches to Alaska's ice, these 10 states blur the US-Canada line more than you'd think. Over 60 million people, endless borders, and vibes that match. Maybe it's not just a dream. California could bankroll it, Michigan could bridge it, and Alaska could seal it. So who's next? An 11th state joining Canada, or Canada joining them? Drop your wildest pick below and let's spark this debate.